Hi guys, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to draw a kitchen in 1-point perspective. For this particular drawing I decided to draw a grid. You may or may not wish to do so, it just depends on what you think is useful. I started off by drawing the outer rectangle, and then I drew the horizon line and a vertical line, the horizon and the vertical lines meeting up at the center. So this is where I decided to put my vanishing point. In a 1-point perspective drawing, any lines that are horizontal and vertical stay horizontal and vertical, and any lines that slant will go towards that vanishing point, and that's why it's important to identify where it is from the beginning. The next thing I did was add in some smaller rectangles, and this isn't necessary, but you may find it useful to do, which is why I've included it. In terms of the measurements of these inner rectangles, the first thing I did was measure the space between the two vertical lines, and I chose to make this 1.2 centimeters, but you can make it whatever size you want. And then as I moved in to the next two vertical lines, I reduced that by 1 millimeter, and I kept doing that as I went inside. I did the same thing with the spacing between the horizontal line. Whatever digit I came up with, I reduced it by 1 millimeter as I went in. The next thing I did was add in some diagonal lines, as you can see here. And the way I added them in is I took a section of the rectangle and just divided it equally depending on how many lines I wanted to cross this particular section. I chose 1, 2, 3, and so I just marked them in and then drew them in, always remembering to connect them to the vanishing point. These diagonal lines will come in useful later on when I add in some checkered flooring, so you might want to add these in. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is start marking in the sections where the parts of the kitchen will be. So for example, you might have cabinets at the top, you will have countertops definitely, and you might have a table to the right, which I will be adding in. The first thing I want to do is marking how large I want the wall to be at the end of this drawing. So first of all, I'm going to take the flooring up to about here. Maybe this is a good spot. And again, if the line is going across horizontally, then it should stay as a straight line. And any lines going upwards, as in vertical, should stay vertical. So let's begin by mapping in where the different sections of the kitchen will go. So on the left side here, I'm going to add some countertops with cupboards. And the one thing that you might notice is that as I'm adding in each cupboard, the line for the next cupboard comes in. So what I mean by this is if I measure it, this first cupboard is about 1.9 centimeters, but if I go to the second one, it's now 1.4. So each section needs to be smaller than the one before it, and that gives the impression of the objects going into the distance, and that's one of the things which will help create the impression of perspective. Perspective being the illusion of 3D in a 2D image. And again, when I'm doing the tops of these counters, I'm going to be making horizontal lines going across. So I need to decide how wide this counter is going to be. Do I want to take it to this diagonal line here or not? Remember that diagonal lines will end up connecting to the vanishing point. So as I'm adding in the countertops around this section here, you can see that when I create that diagonal line at the top, I'm going to connect it to the vanishing point. Now what I'm going to do is add a tabletop around this section here. So again, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to identify the diagonal line which will act as the bottom of the counter. So I'm going to do it here. And let's start the vertical line about here. I'm going to take this up to about here, and then I'm going to do the second diagonal line for the top of the table, and then we're going to do a horizontal line like here, and then we'll do another diagonal line. And if you want to make sure the diagonal line is in the position it should be, simply get a ruler or just do it freehand, it doesn't matter. Connect it to the vanishing point and just pencil that in. And that just makes certain that your diagonal lines are indeed in the right place. The other thing I want to do is add in some more vertical lines, because there are going to be little drawers or cupboards, I haven't decided yet, in this section here. And again, every line that I add in is going to be spaced further and further apart to give the impression of distance. Now that we have the rough section for the kitchen in place, we can start adding in the diagonal lines at the top to show the corners of the ceilings. And again, I'm going to use my vanishing point to help me. Add a ruler in, connect from the vanishing point to that corner right there, and this helps me identify exactly where that ceiling is. And I'm going to do the same on this side. So the thing to note about the cupboards is that we are going to pass that horizontal ceiling line, and you can always look at your reference to make sure you get this right. I'm going to go past that vertical line as well. Once you have these cupboards in place, the next thing to do is to add in the bottom section. So with this particular box here, because it's higher up, you're going to see the bottom a little bit more. Make it about this much, and again, use your reference photo to help you identify how much it should be. And then I'm going to use the vanishing point and connect it to that corner to help me close the line off. Now that we have the base sketch put in, I'm going to start drawing details. And the last thing I'm going to do is just add in the tiniest bit of shading, and that will be all. So that's the end of this tutorial. I hope you found it useful, and other than that, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.